Hello, everybody, and welcome to the following edition of the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. I am Baxter Colburn, joined along Simon Mitchell. Good afternoon to everybody, and welcome. We are excited. We've got another great show in store for you today. We're going to be looking at the goalkeepers and defenders that we think are your sleepers, your busts, and your breakouts. However, Simon Mitchell, my valiant co-host, I feel like you and I might be agreeing on one or two things this week, but we'll get to that all in just a minute. But we want to remind all of you that you can listen to us here on Fridays on the Sports Podcasting Network, and you can also get us on demand anytime on iTunes. Yes, we are officially on iTunes now. And then, of course, on Spreaker.com, Spreaker.com.
And good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon in Norwich in the United Kingdom, and I want everybody to come and check us out on our social media. You can find us on Facebook at The Fantasy Soccer Coaches. You can also find us on Twitter at TF Soccer Coaches. Also, he is at Baxter Colburn, and I am at Mitch the Coach. And if you want to use more than 140 characters, why not drop us an email? We are tfsoccercoaches@gmail.com, and I would like to thank those who did email in this week with some questions, requests, and a couple of people wanting to join our Fantasy Draft League.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Baxter, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm doing very well. The week has come and gone, I feel like, much faster than last week did for me, honestly. I felt last week it took forever to get to Friday for us to do a show, and now suddenly I blinked, and it's like, oh, it's time for another show. So I'm doing very well on my end. I'm excited for an exciting weekend of some weddings I get to go to, and, of course, do another show that I host, What's the Score, the Sports News Quiz. What about you, Simon? How's life with you? How's the wife? How are the kids?
Yeah, everything's hunky-dory this end. I'm incredibly excited because I got my very first fantasy football email this week from the Sun saying it's the big coming soon, the new game, new features, but also the Telegraph launched their preview player list as well.
That's
so we've
exciting.
got a player list. We're starting to have a look at some player values, and guess what else I did this week?
What's that?
Player rankings.
Hey, even more exciting, actually. Well, that's exciting. Well, we have a couple of new guys that we need to talk about, Simon, that have found their way into the Premier League and might shake up our player rankings a little bit as well. 4 guys we want to highlight, and then 2 others that have decided that they're too good for the Premier League, or at least that's what they're going to probably tell everybody, even though you can give them or take them. But 4 new guys joining the Premier League that we want to highlight this week. Who are we starting off with this week, Simon?
Well, we're going to start with Leicester City's new signing, a striker by the name of Ahmed Musa. He's a Nigerian striker. He's just spent the last 5 years playing for CSKA or CSKA Moscow in the Russian Premier League. A prolific striker, got an eye for goal. He's managed 42 league goals in 124 appearances in the Russian Premier League. Not sure if he's going to be a starter for Leicester with Jamie Vardy and Okazaki, who took Leicester to the Premier League title last season, but a very strong addition to the squad. Champions League experience. I do think he could make a difference, especially if your league scores Champions League points.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. And having the opportunity like this where he's played a lot of games at such a young age. He's only 23 years old. My God, looking at him, I mean, he's younger than I am. Not like I'm an old man like you are, Simon. Of course, all kidding aside. But I mean, he's 23 years old. I mean, he knows how to score goals. He's played over in the Russian Premier League, which, as we know, of course, is better than Ligue 1, which I feel like is going to be becoming the running joke on this show. And everything is better than Ligue 1, I feel like. So he's got Champions League experience. He's played for the Nigerian national team. He knows how to put the ball in the back of the net at the end of the day, which I think if you're looking for a guy that's going to come off the bench and potentially score you some goals late on in matches, Leicester City, he's going to be a good player to get on the field because Leicester needs that. They've got that good 1-2 punch with Vardy, as you mentioned, and then having a guy like Musa come off the bench could add some real flair and some real trouble for opposing teams as well, trying to mark him going down the field.
Yeah, he's got some pedigree in international competition as well. He scored 2 goals against Argentina in the 2014 World Cup. So I do think he's going to be a benefit. But a bigger benefit is a new signing for Tottenham Hotspur, who have been crying out for a striker for a season. They can't have Harry Keane play 60 games a season every season and lead the line. So Tottenham went out and spent £17 million on a man by the name of Vincent Janssen from AZ Alkmaar. A out-and-out striker. Not a big hold-up player like Harry Kane, but by Jove, this man knows how to score goals. He has got 27 league goals in 32 appearances with 4 assists. But let's just also remember that this is the Dutch league. It's better than Ligue 1, but there have been some big names that have come over from the Dutch league into the Premier League and failed. However, let's not forget Luis Suarez, who came from Ajax to Liverpool and lit the Premier League up. So, Vincent Janssen, 27 league goals, 32 games. However, as we've said, looking at the league, looking at his pedigree, international, he's played for the Holland, the Netherlands, 3 goals in 4 games. You can't say fairer than that, really.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty good conversion rate on anybody's mind, honestly. Now, I'll ask you because I'm not as well versed in the Spurs nation as you are, of course. But is Janssen going to be one of those guys that's going to be paired up alongside Harry Kane, or is he going to be more of a super sub, similar to what we just talked about with Musa?
He's going to play probably more as a backup to Harry Kane. However, I do have a feeling that he will probably start the first couple of games of the season. Harry Kane played 2 full seasons, or over 100 games for Tottenham.
Wow.
He also played in the under-21 Euros last summer and the Euros this summer. And I do feel that he's in desperate need of a break before the Champions League campaign kicks in. So I do feel that Janssen might get a couple of starts right at the very start of the season. So he could be worth having in your team.
I would agree with that. Yeah, one thing to note as well, according to at least WhoScored.com, Janssen, he's the type of player that draws a lot of fouls often, but he also likes to play the long ball, and he's also not afraid to commit a couple fouls, too. So as much as he gets them dealt onto him, he likes to dish them back as well. 3 yellow cards for him last year. Not too big of a worry, though, in terms of getting those negative points against you when it comes to yellow cards. 2 more players we want to highlight here quickly in the first segment. Who else are we moving on to now?
Well, we're going to talk about a player that's joined West Ham United on loan, Gökhan Töre, who is a Turkish, kind of been hanging around. He's only 24 years old, but he's a midfielder, winger. He's here, there and everywhere, really. He's not settled down this last season playing for Besiktas. He's got... I'm trying to think of something exciting to say for all the West Ham fans out there. Gökhan Töre, what can we say? Yeah, he's all right. He plays out on the wing, left, or mainly on the right. 6 assists last season for Besiktas, 4 goals in 15 games. But he has got a little bit of a attitude about him. Let's hope that Slaven Bilic could probably tame that. Cheap pickup for the right wing, definitely, in a deeper league perhaps, or I don't think his value will be that much. He may get a few games. It's a real tough one to call, Baxter. It really is. I'm not sure where he's going to fit in at West Ham, and I can't think of anything too exciting to say.
Well, that's the thing, too. I mean, if you want to look at him, you can say, I mean, he's had a very good upbringing, though. He spent time with Bayer Leverkusen and with the Chelsea academies, so he's a seasoned veteran in that sense about, he knows the right way to win at that sense. I mean, you've got the German way, you've got the Chelsea way as well, kind of instilled in him, but you did mention, though, he has a little bit of a concern because of his temper. And, I mean, West Ham, they only paid £2.5 million for him for a loan deal. I don't expect him to come onto the field and just immediately take over the game. But at this point, though, I believe a lot of folks were surprised about how well West Ham played last season, and they nearly found themselves in a EuroLeague spot last year, too. So, West Ham continues to surprise a lot of people, and maybe this could be another missing piece that people like you and I are at home going, come on, West Ham, especially looking at this guy, and then all of a sudden we blink and, he's got 20 goals at the end of the year, similar to what Jamie Vardy did. I'm not saying he's Jamie Vardy, so everybody calm down for that. However, as anybody that knows the soccer gods, they have a really weird sense of humor, and anything could happen, honestly. All right, one final player for us, Simon, before we have to run to a break. Who do we got here?
Yeah, we've got Lewis Cook, very, very highly regarded young player that's gone to Bournemouth from Leeds United, 19 years old. A midfielder who can play pretty much anywhere across the midfield, but focuses mainly on the centre. Played for Leeds last season, played virtually all of their games, 41 starts, 2 as a sub, 1 goal, 2 assists, but 10 yellow cards. We spent a lot of time last week talking about the likes of Gundogan, Granit Xhaka, who are coming into the Premier League as midfielders who look pretty. They do a lot of running around. They play a lot of passes. They set up a lot of plays for goals, but don't get the goals or the assists. Lewis Cook is a good cheap pickup if your league will give you points for ratings. So something like the Dream Team FC by the Sun, they will give you points if your player scores 7 or more, or even if they're the star man. So if you're looking for a cheap midfielder who might get some game time, Lewis Cook's a good player to drop in there. Alternatively, if you are looking for out-and-out goals, assists, and outright scoring of points, maybe somebody to avoid for the time being.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. I mean, he did sign a 4-year deal. I mean, he's only 19 years old, so he still has a lot of opportunity to move up the totem pole in the Premier League. But he was also voted the Football League Young Player of the Year, at least for the month of April. Well, he was awarded back in April. But you have to wonder, though. I mean, they start their season against Manchester United. That'll probably be a very clear picture to see what Lewis Cook is capable of doing. Of course, that game taking place August 14th. But yeah, as you mentioned, though, somebody you gotta be careful with. You don't want to bet too much on, but potentially a good cheap pickup for you later on in a draft. 2 guys that are leaving the Premier League that we want to talk about just super fast here as we jump off to a break. Who are those 2 gentlemen, Simon?
Yeah, leaving the Premier League for pastures new. Number 1 is Graziano Pella, who has gone from Southampton to the Chinese Super League, where he is now the 5th richest footballer in the world.
That's ridiculous.
£260,000 a week for a 31-year-old Italian striker. I haven't seen anything like that since the days of Vialli and Baggio when they were kicking around in the early 90s. Yeah, he's actually a loss for fantasy. He was always well priced. He always had a goal in him for the last 2 seasons as well, so sad to see him go. But even more sad to see go is a defender who I've always had for the last few years. He's Martin Skrtel, who's left Liverpool, and he's actually gone to Turkey. Again, we talked last week about Joel Matip, and we were saying about he's going to get games because obviously they've released Kolo Touré, and Skrtel was on his way out. Skrtel's now gone. So just highlighting from what we were talking about last week with our new players, Joel Matip is more and more and more looking likely to actually get some good game time. So a good cheap pickup in your leagues if he's affordable.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, we will start our rankings with our goalkeepers, and we'll let you know who our sleepers, our breakouts, and our busts will be for this 2016-2017 Premier League. Stay with us. You're listening to the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. Back right after this. Welcome back inside the show. Another edition of the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. I'm Baxter Colburn, joined alongside Simon Mitchell. All right, Simon, let's take a look at the goalkeepers. But before we do that, we want to remind all of you that you can find us on social media, on Facebook, the Fantasy Soccer Coaches, and on Twitter, TF Soccer Coaches. I'm at Baxter Colburn, and he is at Mitch the Coach as well on the great Twitter universe. All right, Simon, 10 goalkeepers. Who are we looking at? Who are we thinking? Who do we like? Who don't we like? Who should just stop playing? Should Rob Green come out of retirement? What do we need to do here, Simon?
Rob Green's just joined Leeds United on a free transfer, so he's not retired yet.
I feel like you should be. I mean, when you go to Leeds, I feel like you're basically retiring, so I feel like you probably... That's.
Okay, so I've done the rankings. I've spent some time, I've had a good look over, and I've got my rankings for the season. So let's do the goalkeepers, starting with the top 10 goalkeepers. At number 10, Lucas Fabianski at Swansea. At number 9, Jack Butland of Stoke City. Number 8, Fraser Forster, Southampton. Number 7, Simon Mignolet of Liverpool. Number 6, Kasper Schmeichel at Leicester. Number 5, Hugo Lloris at Tottenham. At number 4, we have Joe Hart at Manchester City. At number 3, Courtois at Chelsea. Number 2 is Petr Cech at Arsenal, which means number 1 Not Rob Green, David De Gea at Manchester United.
Well played. Tim Howard is who I thought what you were going to say for that one.
Oh, no, Tim Howard, he's up and left. He's gone into the retirement home that is the MLS.
Is that still the word that you guys use over there for our wonderful growing league over here, is the retirement league?
Not anymore. The retirement league is now the Chinese Super League.
That's true.
So it's no longer the MLS, yeah.
Thank God. At least we've gotten rid of that at least a little bit.
So just to recap our top 10, De Gea, Cech, Courtois, Hart, Lloris, Schmeichel, Mignolet, Forster, Butland and Fabianski. We're going to talk about some other players that might be on the list that might not be, but we want to highlight for all of our positions our sleepers, who are players that are low-priced, that will pick up some cheap points. They may not even get started, but they may get drafted into teams later on in the season. Our breakouts, the players that we think are actually going to outperform their ranking. And finally, our bust. Who is the player that's going to balls it all up for you, being the technical term? So, Baxter, who is your sleeper in the goalkeeping ranks?
Well, my sleeper in the goalkeeper ranks, he will cost you 3.3 if you are playing the Telegraph. However, I feel like he is a part of a team that not a lot of people gave a lot of credit to last season. It's Adrian from West Ham United. I feel like he's a sleeper in the sense that he doesn't fit into this top 10 or even maybe top 12 or 15 for some people, but he's going to be a starter. He's going to get you points. He had a fantastic year last season, and he's not afraid to put his body on the line to do what he has to do to make big plays. And I think that's the reason West Ham was flirting with the Euro and even a Champions League spot for just a very brief moment in time. And that's why he is my sleeper for this coming season.
Yeah, that's a great shout. I've got in the rankings, Adrian is just outside the top 10, probably around about position 12 or 13. So he's just outside the top 10 goalkeepers, but he will get game time at West Ham. He's very well liked by Slaven Bilic. Definite pick there. Well done. I like that one.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to go a little bit deeper. In fact, probably a lot deeper. Quite well buried, actually, in Burnley. And we talked about this guy last week as one of my picks for the Championship players that have joined the Premier League. And that's Tom Heaton at Burnley. Telegraph have got him currently valued at 2.7 million. And we are using the Telegraph values because they're the only league that we're playing in that have produced any player values. So 2.7 million he'll cost you. He's playing for Burnley. Come up. He's had a season in the Premier League. He's had a great season in the Championship last season. As we said, 20 clean sheets. I think he could be some good cheap pickup for you.
I would agree with that one. Yeah, I think it's one of those players. The Championship teams, when they get promoted, it's always that constant battle, Simon. You know, are they going to be able to do well? Are they going to be a surprise? Are they just going to get relegated again? Do I even want to bother spending, even 1 or 2, million on a player here at least on the Telegraph? Because, well, I don't want players that are just going to get, me negative points, which I can understand for, but a player like him, I feel like, is going to maybe surprise some people, especially a starting goalkeeper on any of those lower level teams. They're going to play, they're going to have a ton of saves, potentially, and then obviously they are going to have the converse side of it where they do allow a lot of goals as well, too, but I do agree with your pick on that one, and I think that will keep a lot of people on edge if they do decide to draft someone like him.
Yeah, no, he's definitely one to look at. So, who's your breakout player then?
My breakout player is part of our top 10 right now, and he is actually, where does he officially fall? He falls at our number 5 spot. It is Hugo Lloris of the Spurs, also because of his campaign that he threw out there for France this last European Championships as well. And Tottenham really surged, I felt like, last season, Simon. And obviously you as a fan have your own opinions about how they did and finished and their shoddy defending against Chelsea in the final game. But that's not important right now. What is important, though, is that Hugo Lloris is one of those players that can stand on his head and then some and really keep a team in a game. But he's also going to get you a ton of points. I mean, it's a man who's gotten 44 clean sheets in the Premier League and over 300 saves as well, too. I mean, he's incredible. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to play the game at a high level, and he's not afraid to risk his body at the same time as well. So keep an eye on him as somebody that I feel like will be a breakout star this year, especially for, I think Tottenham will do a lot better than some folks might give them credit this year.
Yeah, I do think he can really outperform his ranking of 5, and I had to really take a long, hard look at Lloris when I was doing the rankings, because he is a very, very good goalkeeper. But Tottenham, despite having the second best goals conceded in the Premier League last season behind Man United. Don't keep clean sheets. They do concede sloppy goals, but years' experience under the belt. I think the Tottenham team could keep a few clean sheets this season. So Hugo Lloris definitely could improve on his draft position. Well, my breakout, again, I'm going into keeping in our top 10, but right at the bottom of the top 10 is number 10, Lucas Fabianski, who is a bit of a divisive character when he was at Arsenal, known as Flappy Hansky. Didn't really get the chance, but went to Swansea and has had a pretty good time of it, to be fair.
I'd agree.
Good saves, good clean sheets. The manager over there, I think, is going to make some changes to the defence. He managed to keep them in the Premier League last season after quite a poor start. So I think Fabianski's a good shout. Valued at 3.1 million, just behind Jack Butland and Fraser Forster. But that sort of mid-table group of teams in the Premier League, the Southamptons, the Stokes, the Swanseas, West Hams, I do think Swansea could have a pretty good season, maybe finishing 6th or 7th, and that could be down to Fabianski.
I would have to agree with that. I mean, looking at his season last year, 9 clean sheets for him, 115 total saves. Didn't have any penalty kick saves, unfortunately, but as we know, it is a hard thing to do. But a very disciplined goalkeeper since he's made that move. I will agree. I followed Arsenal for a long time, and when he was a part of the Gunners, I was not very thrilled about how he played when he was between the posts. But credit to him for keeping Swansea City above relegation and might make a surprise run next year. I have to agree with you on that one, Simon. You and I share a common enemy for our bust this year for our goalkeepers. Somebody that I feel like one or two people in England may have heard of based off of his performance against Iceland and a lot of other folks, but it's Mr. Joe Hart. We both think he is a bust. I thought for a while, personally, I thought he was a very good goalkeeper, but now I realize that he's much more incredibly hyped than he needs to be and has not performed at the level that he should be, especially at a club like Manchester City. What do you feel about him?
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement. I think when we both shared each other's sleeper breakout and bust list this week, we both had Joe Hart, and neither of us were shocked. Very high price for him as well. He's priced over at 3.8 million. So he's priced at the same as Cech and Courtois. Guardiola's been linked with buying other goalkeepers, Bravo and ter Stegen, both at Barcelona.
Yep.
Joe Hart did lose his place last season to Caballero for a couple of games. He's lost his place a couple of seasons ago when Pellegrini came in for a few games. He has an issue, like all English goalkeepers have this. They'll have a flap, they'll have a bad game, and then they will struggle for a couple of games. They need to get their heads right. If Joe Hart, I mean, the biggest reason why I put him down to be a bust was mainly down to him possibly not even getting a start and costing a lot of money. Mm-hmm. There are other goalkeepers out there that will do a better job. And I really do. I mean, I like Joe Hart. He's England's number one at the moment, but I do think he's... I hope he gets better, but I do think he's a definite candidate for a bust. Yeah,
I mean, something to look at too, because I can tell that, some folks are probably going to be struggling. They're like, well, he had 15 clean sheets last year. Well, that's very impressive, of course. However, Joe Hart plays for Manchester City, who have a very, very good defense, last time I checked. And Joe Hart himself wasn't always the one providing the clean sheets. It was Vincent Kompany. It was those other guys stepping up to make those huge saves for Joe Hart when he himself had not been able to step up and sometimes make those important plays when we're needed. So you have to be careful with that because you have to realize, well, I might be getting Joe Hart, but sometimes the Joe Hart in goal is not as necessarily as good as the Joe Hart defense in front of him. So keep an eye on that, of course. But I do like Joe Hart, but I do feel like he needs to be better, honestly. I really feel like he does. And, if he does get replaced while he's at Manchester City, part of me wouldn't even be that surprised, honestly. All right, let's move on to our... what we need to do is actually go to another break. But any final thoughts about this before we run to a break, Simon?
No, I just really want to recap where we are. So our top 10 goalkeepers, starting at number 1, David De Gea, Petr Cech, Courtois, Hart, Hugo Lloris, Kasper Schmeichel, Mignolet, Fraser Forster, Butland and Fabianski. My sleeper is Tom Heaton at Burnley. My breakout is Lucas Fabianski. And we both have the same bust, which is Joe Hart. Baxter's sleeper is Adrian at West Ham. And his breakout is Hugo Lloris at Spurs.
All right. Well, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, we will talk about the defenders this time. Who are our top 10s, our sleepers, our breakouts, and our busts in the defender region. And then we will wrap things up after that. You're listening to the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. Stay with us. Back right after this. Back inside the studio for another edition of the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. I'm Baxter Colburn, joined alongside Simon Mitchell. Reminder for all of you lovely folks, you can find the show here on Fridays on the Sports Podcasting Network and then on demand on iTunes. Go to your little podcast center there on your iPhone if you have it and download our podcast every single Friday and on Spreaker.com as well. All right, Simon Mitchell, let's move along with the program. We talked about goalkeepers in our last segments, and now we're moving to the guys that sometimes make the goalkeepers look better than they actually are, the defenders. Who do we have here in our top 15 defenders?
Yeah, we've got a top 15 of defenders because you normally need 4 of them in a fantasy team and not just the one like with the goalkeepers. And the thing with defenders is you don't need to worry about their position, whether they're a right back, a left back, or a centre back. Normally, fantasy teams or fantasy leagues will just let you pick 4 defenders. So we've got the top 15. Starting at number 15 is Nacho Monreal at Arsenal. Number 14, Nathaniel Klein at Liverpool. 13, his England counterpart, Kyle Walker at Tottenham. Then at number 12, we have Daley Blind at Manchester United. Number 11, Nicholas Otamendi, Man City. Number 10, this was a tough one, but I had to get him in somewhere, is Luke Shaw at Manchester United. Number 9, Jan Vertonghen at Tottenham. Number 8, Bakary Sagna, Man City. Number 7, Ivanovic at Chelsea. Number 6, again, I was very tempted to leave him out of the top 15, but if he's fit and he's on his game, he's one of the best in the world. That's Vincent Kompany, Manchester City at number 6. Chris Smalling, Man United, number 5. Azpilicueta, Chelsea at 4. Bellerin, Arsenal at 3. And number 2, only because he's at Arsenal, is Koscielny. And number 1, because he's at Tottenham, is Toby Alderweireld. I couldn't put anything between number 1 and number 2. It was so close. They're valued the same. They scored similar points. They're 1 and 2, either or, really. I think the only nudge with Alderweireld was because of the goal threat that he has over Koscielny.
I'd have to agree with you on that one. I guess I have 2 questions for you. My first one is your reasoning behind John Stones not being in your top 15. I mean, as many folks know, last year John Stones is a very talented center back for Everton, and there was rumors of him leaving, of course, and then he ended up staying. But is it just because he plays for a team like Everton who aren't necessarily that defensively sound, or what was your reasoning with leaving John Stones out?
Well, the thing with John Stones is it's not because he's at Everton, it's because he didn't play regularly for Everton last season. When Jagielka got back into full fitness, he didn't get in the team because Funes Mori was playing there as well. John Stone's also been linked with a big money move to either Chelsea or Manchester City. Mm-hmm. And again, Manchester City, if they have Kompany fit and they have Otamendi fit, will he get into the starting 11? Where is he in my rankings? At the moment, he's down around about 25. He's around Moreno, Matip, Kolarov, Sacco. He's a good player, and if he gets regular game times, he will move up the rankings. But he's definitely not a top 15, not based on the last season.
Understandable. And then I guess the other one that you hesitated on when you were in your rankings is Luke Shaw. How will he be able to recover from just an absolutely horrific injury last year? And I feel like putting him in the top 15 was almost a little generous. I feel like, personally, I would have tried to make him earn it. Yeah,
well, again, Luke Shaw is back in training. Manchester United struggled without him. They didn't really have a left-back without Luke Shaw. Mm-hmm. And Luke Shaw started last season fantastically, absolutely brilliantly, and would have been head and shoulders the best left-back in the Premier League, and probably could have earned Manchester United a couple of extra points with his ability as a defender, but also as an attacking fullback to get the extra couple of points to overhaul Manchester City. He's fit, he will play, and if he's fit and he will play, he is definitely in my top 10. He's actually number 10 in my top 15.
I can understand that. No, okay. Well, that's good to know then. I was just curious behind that because I know some folks are still a little reserved about what exactly was going to be in store for that man, Luke Shaw. All right, let's look at our sleepers, our busts, and our breakouts for the 16-17 Premier League season.
Yeah, my sleeper is Tyrone Mings. He spent the whole of last season out injured. He's still probably not going to be ready for the start of the campaign. But in a league like the PremierLeague.com league where you have a squad and you select your lineup and you could have a bench spot, I'd have Tyrone Mings in there. He's going to be cheap. The Telegraph value at around about 2.7 million. So he's priced with the lesser rated defenders, your Michael Dawsons of Hull, your Benalouans at Leicester City, the players that might not get the games. But good player to have on your bench, a good player to maybe draft in later. Bournemouth are quite solid. I think he'll pick you up some cheap points. How about who's your sleeper?
Well, my sleeper at the moment technically does play for Tottenham, but they're saying he's still technically loaned out to Sunderland as well too. So it's hard to tell. But it's the right back for the United States. It's DeAndre Yedlin. He had a very good season last year. In between his loaning between Tottenham and then, of course, being at Sunderland, he made 23 starts and 2 subs last year. And for those of us that are here in America, we are very accustomed to what he is capable of doing. He's got incredible speed. He's able to get down in the attack as well. And if given the proper opportunity, whether he is a starter for Sunderland or Tottenham brings him back and he becomes more of a consistent sub for them, he could be someone that could really surprise. But not worth a lot of cash at the end of the day, but more of a pickup if he does stay at Sunderland and becomes more of a pick for them.
Yeah, he's definitely a interesting player. Tottenham signed him for a couple of £1 million, and he never really got the opportunity at Tottenham. Hence the reason why he was loaned out to Sunderland.
Yep.
I'm not sure Tottenham are going to bring him into the first team because they've got Kyle Walker. They've also got Kieran Trippier, who both had great seasons last season, vying for that right back position. There is talk actually today, I was reading, about him being loaned back to Sunderland or even sold to Sunderland. But Tottenham want a fair chunk of money for him. Interesting.
So they want him, but they don't.
I think it's one of those players where Tottenham would like to have him. Tottenham would like to have him, but they don't have room in the squad, and he's not better than what they have.
Sure. I can understand that. Yeah, he's a very interesting player, but as we mentioned, us that follow the United States, we're a little bit more accustomed to what he's capable of doing. All right, who is your breakout for this year, Simon?
Yeah, I've gone with a really young lad, 18 years old at Manchester United, right-sided defender, Timothy Fosu-Mensah. Made 2 starts and made 6 appearances off the bench for Manchester United last season, but very, very highly regarded. Mourinho has already talked about not needing to have a right back because he has Fosu-Mensah. He is behind Matian Darmian currently at right back and also Antonio Valencia, but I can't see Mourinho with his defensive head keeping Valencia, who's technically a right winger, playing at right back. And I don't see Darmian hanging around at Manchester United. There's a good chance he'll go back to Italy or even to Spain. So there's some good game time there. And the lad's cheap. He's cheaper than Tyrone Mings.
Ooh, okay.
He's 2.6 million with the Telegraph.
Wow, okay. Definitely someone to keep an eye on. My breakout player is somebody that I felt like had a fantastic European Championship for Wales. It's Mr. Ashley Williams. He plays for Swansea City. He'll cost you $3.5 million on the Telegraph. Very far outside of he's probably outside of our top 20 if I'm counting properly, but the man, you might be at home going, well, yeah, we already know Ashley Williams. He's been around. He's, I believe he's 31 now is his official age. Why would he have a breakout year? Well, it's because of the confidence that he had instilled in him from playing for Wales at the Euros. It was an opportunity for him to assert himself and say, you know what, I'm actually a very, very good player, and I'm going to start taking down the Premier League this upcoming season by storm. He had 2 goals and an assist last year. He was a part of 9 clean sheets. He is just one of those guys that you want on your team. Not only is he a good locker room guy, but he's also one of those guys that is going to be on the field a fair amount and could sneak some extra points in for you as well.
Yeah, it's a great pick. It just really depends. We talked about with the goalkeepers with Fabianski, and we do think that Swansea could have a really great season this year. And fingers crossed that they do, because Ashley Williams deserves to be playing for a top team. So, yeah, I hope it works out. So, lastly, who is your defensive bust for this season?
My defensive bust, maybe this is just because I'm not a huge fan of him, but it's also because I'm not a huge fan of his temper as well. It's Chris Smalling for Manchester United. Chris Smalling is one of those guys that you love him when he plays well and you hate him when he makes stupid boneheaded decisions and gets yellow and red carded in games that don't mean anything. He was a part of 17 clean sheets last year, so I have to credit him for that. He appeared 35 times. However, he is also, in my opinion, a bit of a hazard when it comes to yellow cards. He had 8 yellow cards last year, committed 47 fouls, but at the same accord, he as much as I think he could be a bust, he could on the same accord get you a lot of points at the same time, too, for being a part of clean sheets. However, I think he's more of a liability than he is a positive for your team, so I would avoid Chris Smalling.
Interesting. Chris Smalling is one of my first picks for defenders for next season, so we'll have to see how that one goes. But I take what you say. He's an interesting choice in regards to Manchester United. He had a good season last season. You could say he was the breakout player last season, but he has got an injury record. He's not really had, apart from last season, a full season in the Premier League where he hasn't had any injury or he's not been stuffed out onto the right back. So I'm kind of hoping that Mourinho builds his team around him, but I can see Mourinho bringing in a replacement for him just as much.
Yeah, I mean, it could be either way for that one. He's one of those players where you can love him or hate him, but for some reason I feel like how I thought he finished out last season, I was not particularly pleased with how he played.
Yeah, no, I hear you, most definitely. Well, my bust is probably at the other end of the English centre-half scale, and again, probably not because I like him very much. John Terry, he's been given another year at Chelsea.
Oh my gosh, make it stop.
He threw all of his toys out of the pram to get another contract. He got his contract. Chelsea went against everything. They released Ashley Cole, they released Frank Lampard, they sent him to the MLS retirement home, and he hasn't ever. He didn't have a great season last season. He's got a bit of an injury in him. He's pushing 52 now. I'm not sure exactly how old he is, but he's been around for a long time. I genuinely think it's time to put John Terry out to pasture, and hopefully that pasture's a long, long way away from the Premier League. Send him to China.
Probably China, where he'll get about another, $300 million for a week or something's worth of play, or some stupid number, or send him to MLS. We've heard rumors about him coming to MLS. Might as well, just send him over here. But I hope not. I really hope not. John Terry, when he's not sleeping with teammates' wives, he's a legend somewhere in English football. I feel like, right?
Allegedly sleeping. Allegedly. We'll leave that one there.
Exactly.
Well, there we go. So let's just recap our top 15 defenders, or my top 15 defenders: Nacho Monreal, Nathaniel Klein, Kyle Walker, Daley Blind, Nicholas Otamendi, Luke Shaw at number 10, Vertonghen at 9, Sanya 8, Ivanovic 7, Kompany 6, Smalling 5, Azpilicueta 4, Bellerin 3, Koscielny 2, and Toby Alderweireld is number 1. My sleeper is Tyrone Mings at Bournemouth. My breakout is Fosu Mensah at Manchester United. And my bust, as we've just been talking about, is Big Dog JT, John Terry at Chelsea. And Baxter's got probably better picks than I do for the sleeper. DeAndre Yedlin, if he gets the game time at Sunderland, his breakout being Ashley Williams. Hopefully he's going to have a big season for Swansea. And his bust, Chris Smalling. And that is our biggest bone of contention. But there we go. We will leave the defenders there. Time to wrap up.
Yes, sir. We're going to wrap things up and come back and give you all some reminders of where you can join our fantasy leagues. We'll talk about that right after this. Stay with us. You're listening to the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. Wrapping things up here on another edition of the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. I am Baxter Colburn, joined alongside Simon Mitchell. Simon Mitchell, you made a comment to me during the break about you watching a proper sport, not necessarily just the proper of all things. Of course, it's not football. I wish football was on right now. However, you made a bit of a jab at golf here in the States, and as you're watching the British Open right now, why is it the proper Open, as you call it, over there?
It's not the British Open. It is the Open.
The Open.
There's the Open, and it is the Open because it's the Open. The US Open is the US Open. You have the USPGA and you have the Masters. This is the Open. There's nothing else that is like it. There's nothing else that is as old as this. It started 1860, I believe it started. 1860. That's over 150 years ago. 150 years ago. You can't say that it's the British Open. The only people that call it the British Open are the Americans. And you've got 3 golf majors over there. Give us one. Give us our one.
Well, you guys invented the sport. No, that was the Scottish that invented the sport, didn't they? Or who was it that invented it? I never even remember, honestly. But it all kind of.
Let's not go into who invented golf. We'll open a whole can of worms.
Exactly.
We'll start a new show.
We don't need to do that.
We'll call it the Who Invented Golf show.
Perfect. Well, before we wrap things up today, Simon, we wanted to take a minute to remind everybody of the several different places that people can join us for fantasy soccer this year, and I'll let you give those out because you have a better grasp on that than I do still.
Yeah, well, just to remind everybody, we're going to be working and using 4 different fantasy leagues this season for rankings, for prices, for point scoring, to give us an idea of how different leagues do it, because there's many out there. The first one that we're doing is Dream Team FC by The Sun. As I said at the start of the show, very excited because I got their email this week. We're expecting their league to launch in the next 7 days. A very simple league. You get a budget of £50 million and you spend it on a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-3 formation. You can set up your own leagues. We're going to set up our own league. We'll let you guys know when we've done. The second one we're doing, we've already used their values in today's show, and that is the Telegraph. Again, it's a pot of money. Players have got values. You can select whatever players you want. You pick the best value team for the money that you have. The third one we're doing is from the official PremierLeague.com website, which is fantasy.premierleague.com. This one, you set a squad of players, you have a bench, you play jokers, wildcards, triple captains. It's a weekly lineups game. They have a cup competition. Again, it's a lot more in depth than the other 2. And the final one that we're doing is our very own draft league, where we are going to be drafting in the beginning of August, a 20-team league, head-to-head, points, with trading, with all sorts going on. We've actually just set up the league today. We're adding in all the guys that played from our Euro 2013 draft, and we are opening it up to you. You want to be a part? We've already got a couple of guys that have sent us an email saying that they want to take part. Send us an email, tfsoccercoaches@gmail.com. You send us that email, first come, first serve. We will add you into that league. All you need to do is be able to get onto the internet, and if you can get onto the internet to send us an email, you can join our league.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So that's where we are.
I love it.
The interweb.
The interwebs, the wonderfulness that is the internet. And make sure, though, if it's not working, if you try turning it on and off again, and make sure it's plugged in as well, too. A little it crowd humor there for you. Well, thank you, Simon Mitchell, for your continued contributions to the Fantasy Soccer Coaches. He is Simon Mitchell. I'm Baxter Colburn. We'll see you all again next Friday. Remember, Fridays on the Sports Podcasting Network. Thank you to the almost 2,000 of you that listened to our first edition on the Sports Podcasting Network. And then you can find us on demand as well on iTunes and on Spreaker.com. He's Simon Mitchell. I am Baxter Colburn. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you all again next time on the Fantasy Soccer Coaches.